and how much of your life are you going to share and how much are you not going to share. And I know this is a really weird segue into I'll share a little bit, but here we are. With kind of a fire lit under my butt in terms of how to really get started, or not how to get started, but just to really get started and diversify my content a little bit and add just more interesting things that people might want to watch to maybe engage a little bit more with you guys and add some more people to this audience. One thing I have to say about my audience on this channel is the activity from you guys and the engagement from you guys is really, really awesome. It's very inspiring. You don't realize how inspiring it will be to have an engaging audience until you get one. And then you're like, man, I feel like I'm actually performing for people as opposed to by myself and hoping that somebody will see it. So one of the things I did was I put out a poll just asking, what would you like to see? I offered some options, but then I had a fill in the blank in case I missed something, in case there's something you'd like to see more of. And multiple people said they would like to see a little bit more of just daily life as an atheist content creator. I guess I don't share as much as I thought that I did in my content, but there's certain things you just don't necessarily think people will be interested in, or this isn't necessarily what they're here for. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I've never done any kind of, get ready with me or day in the life content of any kind, not even on TikTok. But I thought that I would just hop on here and share a little bit about my background and my life, and then also some information on my personal journey content creating. I know it's a little bit different for everybody, but a lot of times people ask me, how do you get started? Where do you even begin? What do you even do? Yada, yada, yada. I thought I would just kind of knock out a couple of opportunities to give you content people have been asking for. So there you go. We got other stuff coming. I've got some movie reviews coming. I've got some reaction content coming, but this was by far the most interesting result that I got out of those polls. And so I wanted to give the people what they want. So here we go. My content creation journey has not been easy at all. And it has spanned the course of, I think I've had this YouTube channel for like 16 years, something crazy. Here, let me look it up. Hold on. I have had this YouTube channel for since October 8th, 2009. So very long time. In 2009, I believe I was a junior in high school. I don't even remember the day that I set up this YouTube channel, but it's been a long time. It's been almost 20 years, which is crazy. But the thing is, and the thing that I think is really, really important, especially for people looking to get involved in this content creation space, is it was not always an atheist content creation space. In fact, I would say in 2009, I was still a very devout Christian, and I would be for another 10 years at least, probably. And so there's been a journey there, right? Like what you're seeing, what you can see on my channel right now is not the content I've been posting that whole time. This is the content that I've been posting for a few years now. So in 2009, that was about the time that I first got started in improv and stand-up comedy. So a lot of the content I started posting back in the day was comedy-related content or content of that sort. It never really took off. And looking back, there were a lot of mistakes I made as a content creator that I would do differently now, but I'm glad that I didn't because it led me to where I am now. But my YouTube channel probably had 0 subscribers until I started doing this podcast, honestly. I think the only people that ever subscribed to my content before then were people who knew me personally and knew I was a stand-up comic and just wanted to support or whatever. I also had some haters subscribe to me back in the day. Being a woman in comedy is very interesting. So, when people ask me, how do you get started? Honestly, it could mean so many different things to different people, but where it started for me was trying a little bit of everything. I joke that every 5 years, I'm a totally different person, and honestly, though, that's not a joke. That's a true fact. I tried posting stand-up comedy content. I tried posting skits that really didn't go anywhere. I tried posting vlogs. I tried posting opinion pieces. There was a while where I was trying to be Philip DeFranco and cover the news, and that lasted about 1 week before I realized how fast the news is churning and how many editors and what massive of a team that man must have in order to generate that type of content. I did interviews. I've tried 10 or 11 different podcasts, most of them just me talking to comedians, right? A comedian talking to other comedians. What a groundbreaking experience. So While it looks like, based on the date on my YouTube channel, that I've been in the game for a long time, I have not. I usually tell people, the stuff that you promote on social media is the stuff that's going well. The stuff that you don't promote on social media and the stuff that isn't around is the stuff that failed. But people might think that everything works out for you because all they ever see is the successful stuff, when in reality, sometimes you need to wait a little bit before you start announcing things and new projects and make sure that you can actually stick with it long enough in order to make it something. So I think that would be my first piece of advice for anybody looking to get involved in the content creation space is wait until you have lots of content lined up and you know for sure that you're actually going to stick with this kind of content before you make it your whole brand. And I say this because I've done this. I've done this a million times. People who are Facebook friends with me, or the few, maybe dozen people who've been subscribed to this channel for a long time, have seen it go all over the place. I had an unboxing channel for a while where I would unbox little makeup things, those delivery boxes. It wasn't until I got started posting the Growing Up Fundie content that I really saw interest pick up and I really saw views pick up. And I'm still a small creator. I'm still considered a small creator. But that's really when I started to get positive feedback. And I started thinking, maybe this is what people are looking for. And this is what I think I can do uniquely well, right? There are a million people out here doing true crime and makeup and unboxing and reviews and think pieces a million times better than me, right? And there are also people in the atheist content creator space that are bigger and larger platforms than me. But I genuinely feel like when I hit this topic, when I hit this space, this is really where I felt like I could shine and where I belonged. And when you feel that way, that also encourages you to continue making content. You feel like when you're proud of what you're doing and when you feel like you've really found your footing, that helps you continue to make content. And so that's kind of how I wound up where I am today. So to start, find something that you're really passionate about, not that you think is going to make a lot of money, not that you think is just trendy right now, because trends change. And a lot of the people that you follow that are gigantic YouTubers, not all of that is always real, right? Maybe they're buying followers, maybe they're buying views, maybe they're buying engagement, who knows? Some of them are massive, but the internet is not always reality. And so if you're going into it thinking, I can make a lot of money doing this, you might accidentally slide into kind of grifter style content where you're selling courses and things like that. And that's not necessarily a great place to be. So for starters, I would pick something that you're really passionate about. Maybe you can find a spin on this topic. So for example, I think my unique angle is that I'm also a comedian. So when I interview people, I've heard that it comes out, my sense of humor comes out and my improvisation skills come out, but I'm also a professional debater. So when you combine professional debate and comedy with interviewing, I think, in my opinion, I'm totally biased, of course, you get a formula that really works. And again, in my totally biased opinion, it works and people are interested in it and they engage with it. Not always positively. Sometimes they have critique, but that's okay. Like that's part of the deal, which leads me to my second point on how do you get started as a content creator. You have to be okay with feedback, with critique, with nonstop criticism, with nonstop ideas, because even people who really, really love your content, they're going to have ideas on how to do it newer and do it fresh. And you'll be feeling like, I just launched this thing I'm proud of. I haven't even sat in it for a second. And people are asking me when I'm going to do it again. You have to be cool with that. You have to be cool with people being mean on the internet. Oddly enough, the nicest time I've ever had on the internet has been since I've entered this space. The most ruthless time I've ever had on the internet was the 15 or 16 years I was doing stand-up comedy. Being a comedian on the internet sucks, but being a female comedian on the internet sucks even worse. So anytime that you would log on to Reddit or whatever, and there would be a bunch of notifications, you knew it was not gonna be a great day. And this is not to scare anyone away from being a content creator. It's just to be realistic. I just want to be as honest as possible with people, where content might make people seem like they're just having a lovely time all the time. What you truly do experience is constant criticism, constant critique, a lot of which is constructive and you should, consider. But you also deal with people disliking you just because. And then you just have people who decided long ago they didn't like your stuff for no reason. And then you have people who do like your stuff, but they think what they need to do is constantly critique it in order to make it better. And you have to decide for yourself how you feel about that. Do you appreciate that? Do you respond in kind? Do you ignore it? Do you take that feedback and run with it? I like to try and take that feedback the majority of the time when I can tell it comes from a positive place. But if you're going to put yourself out there as a brand and as a face, you have to be ready for people to not be a fan of that brand and that face. It's kind of crazy, but it happens all the time. Something else that I think people should keep in mind when they're creating content is whether or not they want to use their real name and their real face, or a screen name and a screen face. Because I started my YouTube channel when I was in high school, everything is under my real name. When you Google me, it all shows up, all of it pops up. I remember at the time thinking, oh, by the time I'm an adult, I'm going to be a famous comedian and I'm not going to give a shit what anybody thinks about when they Google me. Now I still don't have anything out there that I'm worried about people finding, genuinely worried about people finding on Google, but there's a lot of embarrassing and cringy shit out there. Then it's all under my real name. So think about that. Do you care? Do you not care? Are you proud of what you're posting? Are you not proud of what you're posting? It's interesting to me that people can still pull up the stuff from when I was a young conservative Christian. I'm not afraid of that because I think it's really important to talk openly about how much people change opinions, change political beliefs, change religious beliefs. People are constantly growing and changing and adapting. And I've spoken openly many times about how what's the word I'm looking for? How embarrassing it can be to remember some of the things that I made my entire personality and my entire brand, and now I could not be more different from that person. And if people remember me a certain way from my past, they're not wrong about that. Unfortunately, they're not wrong that I may have said or done a few things that I would never dream of saying or doing now. But at the same time, it's those experiences that really kind of give weight to how important it is that we change and we grow over time, and how important it is that we change our opinion and we admit that out loud. We say, I used to say this thing used to be my entire personality, my whole brand, and I have since changed my mind. And that's all I can say. And if there's anyone who's ever known me who doesn't talk to me for a way that I used to be or used to act or things I used to say, I don't blame them one bit. That's who I was at the time. And unfortunately, they won't get a chance to meet who I am now, but that's okay. Because, sometimes you live and you learn through regrets. So I said all that to say, do you want your real name associated with your new content, especially when you're in a space like this that can be kind of controversial? That's totally your call, but it's definitely something to think about. Do you want this content to follow you wherever you go? Think about that. The other aspect I would say that it's really important about content creation is knowing your output schedule early on. When you first get started, you're like, I'm going to interview 3 people a week and I'm going to post like crazy, blah, 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 blah. And that lasts about a month before you realize how exhausting that is, especially if you have a job or a family or literally anything else going on outside of content creation. If it's not your full-time gig, be cool with yourself, right? I remember I went like a solid year, I think, posting 2 episodes a week. And that was time consuming. And I am trying to get back to a point where I'm going to be posting regularly. But I've learned so much about filming in batches. Back then, if I was posting 2 episodes a week, it's because I was talking to people twice a week. And that was quite extensive. But now it's like, oh, I can film 4 episodes of something on one Sunday, and I can schedule that stuff to post over time, and I can edit those episodes to post on other platforms like TikTok and Instagram over time. You learn a lot about balancing your schedule. And it's okay if you don't get it right in the beginning, but just keep in mind, if you start out posting 3 episodes a week, that's a lot. And you're willing to sacrifice everything right now. But when you've been doing it for a full year and now you realize you don't get to go out and hang out with friends much, you don't get to, work, you don't have many days off or anything like that because of editing and things like that. Keep that in mind. Be realistic with yourself. Maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe you post videos and lives a certain amount of time, but you post pre-records or audio to the audio platforms, if you use them, a different amount of time. I haven't posted an audio clip in a while, and that's kind of what I'm focused on getting back into. But be realistic with yourself and your schedule. If you know a big YouTuber who posts every single day, for example, like Charlotte Dobray, she is very open about how much work that takes and how she doesn't film every day, she posts every day, and what a big difference that is. She's also very open about the fact that she has a team of editors, right? It's not just her doing all the work. So following YouTubers like that who are realistic about their output is, I think, beneficial because it shows you exactly what goes into having content like this and having kind of your face be a little bit of a brand. So for full transparency, I have a full-time job. I actually work nights, which is very, very difficult, which is one of the reasons why I haven't posted audio content in a while, because before I moved and changed jobs, I worked during the day. So it was very easy to interview people in the evenings because most people are available in the evenings. But now I live in a new town where I don't know a lot of people and I work evenings now. I'm in the beginning stages of learning how to create content around that schedule. Luckily, I have weekends off and I have 1 weekday off. So I'm figuring out where recording fits there. I'm recording this on a day where I recorded an episode this morning, and I also recorded 2 episodes of something totally different. Yesterday, I was on somebody else's channel, and I did some recording for my own channel with a meeting about an entirely different thing that I'm involved in. So if you are somebody that needs a lot of downtime in order to recharge, like I am, it's very difficult to navigate what that looks like for your schedule. So be open to adaptation, be open to change. Don't feel like because in the beginning you were posting all the time constantly that you're not allowed to adapt and change over time. It's not a failure to do that. It's just life. It's just some of the things that you run into in life. And so while I really like my job, my evening job, it's one of those things where I can't really record in the morning because you got to get sleep, and I have to spend time with, my family and do normal things like wash dishes and do laundry. So I'm in the stages right now of figuring out for 2025 and 2026, because I hope maybe I'll still have that job unless I'm making so much money doing content that I don't have it anymore. I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like and what I can realistically promise people before I start, just launching stuff. So that's something to keep in mind. Keep in mind also that if you become a content creator, people will find your content. It's just inevitably, with the rise of really powerful algorithms, with the rise of really, really powerful mechanisms in terms of advertising and pushing content on YouTube and on TikTok and on social media. Even the people that you think won't see it will see it. They will see it. Some of them won't say anything. Some of them will have a lot to say about it. So definitely keep that in mind when you're making content. If this is something you wouldn't want your aunt to see, there may be a chance they're going to see it. If this is something you don't want your dad's coworkers to see, there's a chance they're going to see it. And with that in mind, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't post content. I argue that you should post what you feel to be authentic and true to yourself, especially in a space like this, without fear. But the reality is, with some of us, there are things to worry about. With me, luckily, I've been embarrassing my family with comedy for like 15 years. So embarrassing them with another type of content isn't that really that unusual, right? They're kind of used to hearing about what Sydney did on the internet this week and just kind of sighing and rolling their eyes. So keep that in mind, though. It's important to keep in mind, is there anybody in your life that you wouldn't want to see this content? And it's truly a dire situation. If they do, what does that look like? What are you going to do in order to keep them from being able to see this content? Maybe you'll use a screen name. Maybe you'll hide your face. Maybe, there's a lot of creators who use animated characters and masks and things. I kind of screwed that up from an early age, so I wasn't really worried about being heard or found out because it's all out there anyway. But definitely keep that in mind. Who do you not want to see it? These things, if you have specific people in mind, and what about that are you going to do? Or do you not care? Are you going to post it on your personal Facebook and that's what that is and that's fine? Totally your call. Nobody can make that call for you. I think there is also an important distinction between letting people in on who you are as a person and letting people know everything, like where you are and what you're doing all the time. So if you do plan to get involved in a space like ours, it's kind of controversial. Not everybody agrees with you all the time. How safeguarded are you going to be on other platforms like your own personal Instagram that has nothing to do with your, and how much of your life are you going to share and how much are you not going to share? And I know this is a really weird segue into I'll share a little bit, but here we are. It's nothing. I'm not going to share anything that I haven't shared on social media before, but I also don't add everyone to my personal social medias. So here we go. Oh. I'm 33. I'm turning 34 when my birthday comes up later this year. And I have lived all over the United States. I think I've talked a lot in my podcast about being from Arkansas, which I am. I was raised in Arkansas, Bentonville, the northwest corner, and that's if that sounds familiar, it's because that's where Walmart's from. But I also grew up in Springdale, Arkansas, which is where I ended up going to the same church that the Duggars went to for a little bit, which is kind of my whole brand. And they still live there. But after I lived in Springdale, moved to Bentonville, and I consider that my hometown where I was raised because I lived there the majority of my upbringing as my formidable years, as you might say. And then I moved to Chicago when I was in 11th grade. Essentially, what happened was I was in competitive forensics, which is like acting and speech competitions. And I really enjoyed Saturday Night Live, the show. And I found out that everybody who worked on Saturday Night Live, once I realized it was a job that you could get, and I was, 13 and curious, my mom and I did some research and we found out that people who work on SNL come from a place, most of them come from a place called the Second City, which is a series of comedy clubs. There's one in Chicago, there's one in Toronto. There used to be one in Detroit. I could be remembering that wrong. And then for a minute there was a satellite campus in New York. I'll have to Google and find out if it's still there. And so we went and we visited Chicago and we went to a Second City show and it was awesome. It was so cool. Never had a better time. It was really, really neat. And the next day we were at Starbucks on North and Wells, which is connected to the Second City. It's all in the same building. When I met an actor who had been on the show that I had watched the night before. I was geeking out. I saw him in the corner. It took me like 25 minutes to work up the courage to go talk to him. And finally I asked him, first of all, I told him I thought he did a really great job. And then I asked him if he had one piece of advice for anybody who wants to do what he does for a living, what would he say? And this gentleman said, without hesitation, he said, if you're interested in being on the main stage of Second City, if you're interested in doing, SNL or Second City sketches, you need to move here to Chicago. He said, I can't recommend a faster climb essentially to that goal. If that is your goal to be involved in sketch comedy, you need to move to Chicago and you need to immerse yourself in the comedy scene here. That's the best advice I can give you. So my mom, being awesome, moved to Chicago the next year. Obviously, she wanted to make sure I was dead serious about it because when my brother and I were young, we were very serious artistically, right? We practiced, we rehearsed, we competed, we won awards, but she made us a deal where she said, if I can keep my grades up, because I was in high school, my brother was in college, if we can keep our grades up and if we can keep a part-time job and if we can prove that we can contribute to the household expenses involved in moving, then we can move to Chicago and we can start training at the Second City Training Center, which is improv, stand-up, storytelling, lots of different classes for all ages, all the way up to adults. So we did. So in 2008, we moved from Northwest Arkansas to Chicago. My mom took a year-long sabbatical with her job, and we started taking classes at Second City, and I started doing stand-up, and I started doing improv. And then one day, the Second City called my mom, and they said, we have a teen stand-up class that doesn't have enough students in it to continue with the class, but we also don't want to cancel it. So we've enrolled Sydney in stand-up and she starts on Thursday. And that's how I got involved in stand-up. People think it's because I watched Comedy Central, because I had a favorite comedian, because I was inspired. No, I never watched Comedy Central. Like I never had a favorite stand-up. I wanted to be on SNL, and improv was life. And I thought that improv was going to be everything I did for the rest of my life until the day I died. And I did not last longer in improv than I did the teen improv program, and then I did the adult improv program because the skills are good to have, but I wasn't interested in joining an improv troupe the way that I thought I would. I started doing stand-up during that high school class, and it just took off from there. And I did it until regularly. I did it regularly until 2023.
Editing, Sydney here. I totally forgot to mention at this point in the story that I ended up working for the Second City Training Center for a very long time as well. So I took their teen stand-up class, I took their teen improv class, I took their adult improv class, I took, I don't think I didn't take an adult stand-up class, but After that, when I was 25, I had been applying to work there over and over and over again. I really, really wanted to work there. I'd been taking classes at that point for, almost 10 years. And I eventually got hired, and they hired me to create the curriculum for their storytelling class, levels 1 and 2. I do believe there might be an amalgamous level 3 out there somewhere, but it's been a minute. It's never been used. And then I also was hired to help revamp their stand up comedy classes there as well. And I totally forgot to mention that. So, yeah, that was really, really neat to go from being a student to being an employee there, and I was so excited, and I loved working there. I was never fired. I technically still work there, I guess, but I haven't taught anything since 2022. I taught in person, and then when lockdown happened, I started teaching virtually, and that's kinda when I branched out into my own remote classes virtually, and then it just went from there, and then I just eventually stopped accepting courses from them. So I was never really fired, but I don't technically work there either. But yeah, I just totally forgot that huge piece of the puzzle, the huge part of my life that shaped me. But anyway, thank you.
So, and then in 2023, I kind of hung up my hat a little bit there in order to focus more here in this space on atheist activism, agnostic activism, humanist activism, videos, content. I felt like this was much more important. And while I felt like I was good at comedy, I didn't feel like I was unique or making a difference really in any way. Comedy would be around with or without me, but I do feel like I am actually making a difference in this content and on this channel. And that's really where I wanted to shift my focus, because I felt like comedy was fun, but in times like we're living today, if there is a way that we can make a difference, even a small one, that's really important to do. And when I realized that I am one of the few people I know that if I come out as an atheist and as a non-believer, I don't lose anything. I don't get ostracized by my family. I don't lose my job. I don't lose my support system. I don't lose my husband. I don't lose my pets. I don't lose access to anything if I come out as an atheist, right? Like the worst that's going to happen is people are going to unfriend me from Facebook who used to know me as a Christian. And that's like the extent of it, which is unfortunate because I still feel like I'm a nice and funny person, right? People who used to follow me for comedy probably get a little sick of this shit. So they maybe don't follow me either. But that's why I still try to, be entertaining. But that's how I got started in comedy. And so I moved to Chicago, but I had already, this is a little bit confusing, but I had already accepted a scholarship to the University of Arkansas, Monticello, yeehaw, a debate scholarship. So even though I moved to Chicago in high school, I moved back to Arkansas for school, and I could still go to U of A because my mom still worked and lived and had an address in Arkansas. So I could still get in-state tuition without having to mess with that. And I got a scholarship. So I went to the University of Arkansas, and then over Thanksgiving and summer break, I would go back to Chicago and I would see Second City shows, and I would take classes and like the summer intensives and things like that. And then the minute I graduated, I graduated a year early. So I started school in 2010 and I graduated in 2013 because I was taking, 20 hours, literally 20 hours per semester. It may have been more than that, 21 hours. I don't know. I'm bad at math. It's in threes. It's like 3 hours per class, I think. So I was in debate. I competed in debate I started in novice and I skipped whatever is in between novice and pro. I forget. I didn't do it, so I don't even remember what it's called. Varsity. And I went straight to pro. I think I competed once in varsity and I did not like it. So then I skipped to pro, and pro, at least in IPDA debate, which is what I did, International Public Debate Association. That's a format where you and your partner your opponent figure out who each other are in the moment. You figure out what your topic is in the moment, and you figure out what side of the argument you're going to be on in the moment. You don't even get to pick if you're for or against whatever you're about to talk about. You don't get to pick anything. And then you have 25 minutes to do as much research as possible. And then you're in front of a judge and you're trying to convince them that they should believe you on such and such grounds. And there's cross-examination, and it's a whole thing. I can still remember the time patterns of each part of the debate. And then it's over, and then the judge decides on their ballot who won. Their speaker points and debate points. So even though they have to pick a winner of the debate, they can give somebody a lot of speaker points for being an amazing speaker and just not convincing them of their side. Or sometimes they would say it comes down to literally a coin toss on who won. That's neither here nor there. So I was always in the top points for speaker, and then many times in the top point for debate, top points and top rank for debate. But mostly the speaker points was where I felt like I really shined, where they really liked my organization, my presentation, my ability to cross-examine. And looking back, I would have debated much differently now than I did then, but the skills have been just invaluable. If you ever have a chance to take debate, just invaluable skills. And as a professional debater, I can go back and debate at any age. I don't have to be affiliated with the university. Lawyers come back and debate, coaches debate still. People can come back at any time. So I have gone back as an adult and debated, and it's been very interesting. But now I focus more on teaching people how to communicate effectively in real life versus on, call-in shows or in debate studios, things like that. Studios, my God, I can't even talk today. Competitions, tournaments. So that's kind of a rundown on how I wound up here. Is I did not mean to become a stand-up comedian, and I did not really mean to become an atheist content creator. But when it happened, when I found a topic that I was interested in, and I started making episodes on this topic, and I started gaining traction, I thought, wow, this could actually become something that lasts for a long time. And now here we are. I've been doing it since 2021, and it's by far the longest project I've ever had that I would consider successful. I mean, I am a little bit biased. So then I lived in Chicago, and I stayed there until 2020 when lockdown hit. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on in Chicago at that time. So back when we thought that lockdown was just going to be for the summer, I took my dog and I moved back to Arkansas, where my parents have like a little apartment in their basement thing. And I lived there for what ended up being a year because, we didn't know. We had no idea. I actually had to travel back to Chicago at one point and pack up my apartment because my lease was up. So that was really weird, especially in the middle of lockdown, in the middle of the pandemic. But while I was there, I got laid off from my day job because of COVID. And so I started virtual courses. I started teaching storytelling and stand-up and writing and public speaking and debate and communication skills courses, all virtual, from first my apartment in Chicago and then my parents' basement in Arkansas. And it was really eye-opening. It was very interesting. And that's when I kind of realized that debate and communications were really something that I was good at and something that I wanted to continue to pursue. I thought comedy was going to be my life forever, but that's when I really started to think like maybe there's something more here than just being a comedian. And so I wanted to move back to a city, but I didn't necessarily want to move back to Chicago because I'd been there for so long. I was kind of looking for a reason to leave and try something new. I had been there at that point since I graduated. So 2013, I'd been there in high school for a couple of years. Then I went back every year of college, and then I moved back when I was done with college. So I'd basically been sticking around there for over a decade, and I wanted to try something different. And I could kind of feel the tide shifting in terms of comedy for me. I wasn't totally done with it, but I could tell that I was headed in a different direction. And so my best friend was like, well, we live pretty close to Nashville, which seems like a pretty big city, and there seems to be lots of arts and culture there, and it's warm because I didn't want to go back to those polar vortex winters. She said, why don't you go to Nashville? So that's what I did. In 2021, I moved to Nashville. That was also the same year that I started this podcast, and I lived there until Christmas of this year when I moved to Arizona. So now I live in Arizona. I'm not going to do a lot of editing here because I feel like my real speaking style should be shown in a video about myself and content creation. So whatever. I'm sorry if it's terrible. And love Arizona. Nashville did a lot of great things for me, and I'm glad that I experienced it. I would not move back. My husband feels the same way. We met in Nashville. We're so glad we met in Nashville. Got a lot of really interesting insight. Met some amazing people. I have some friends that I'm still friends with today. Most of my bridal party were people that I met in Nashville, but I would not move back. It was quite the experience. I understand why people like weekends in Nashville. I do. I understand why vacationing in Nashville is a lot of fun. Arizona, though, dope as hell. They are not lying when they say a dry heat is better than any other kind of heat. 108 in in Phoenix, 1,000% better than a 75-degree day in parts of Arkansas and Tennessee, or even an 80 or 90-degree day. You die with the humidity. I thought my entire life I didn't like hot weather, and I was a heat baby. When it came to heat, I was like a big fat baby. Turns out I don't like humidity. Heat's great. Right? I was walking around on 115 the other day. Not far. Don't be dumb about it. Not far. But That's neither here nor there. I had, I'm trying to think other things. I had a dog named Zilla. I adopted her in 2017 when she was 9 years old. She was a Staffordshire Terrier pit bull, and we had to put her down last week. So that was, God, that was really sad. Sorry. Like, Zilla was, I wish you guys got to know her. It never really occurred to me to include her in content before, but you guys would have loved Zilla. She was just an amazing dog. I didn't teach her anything. I didn't teach her anything that she knew. She didn't eat shoes. She didn't eat cords. She didn't eat anything that didn't belong to her. She was chill. Man, she was just a great dog. And she was so strong. And she was always there, so like, it's been kind of tough for the last couple of weeks, like leaving, I'll leave the bathroom or something after I'm getting ready and she's not there to trip over, or I'll go into the kitchen and open the fridge and there's not like a dog just like anxiously, hoping I'm going to drop a snack or whatever. Especially at night, because when I would go to bed, I would eat a snack and I would share my snacks with her, and it's just weird not having her here. So I had a dog. I think I posted about her in my community page a few times, but I'll include some pictures here. But she passed. She passed really wonderfully. She was 17. She lived to be 17 years old, which I knew was really old, but it wasn't until we started taking her to vets and things here that we learned just how old she was. And she lived a great life. We had somebody come here. We had a veterinary service come here, and we were, she was surrounded by her loved ones when she passed. She does have an Instagram that you can still go watch videos and footage of her. It's called Godzilla and the Parrots, because we also have parrots, which if you've watched any of my talkie thens, you've probably heard them in the background. Sorry, ACA. I'm honestly shocked they're not going off right now. You know how people say whenever you don't hear kids is when you should be concerned about the kids? That's how parrots are. But we have parrots. They're 4 green cheek conures, not to be mistaken with sun conures or Genday conures or any other type of conures that are twice as big and twice as loud. Don't do that in an apartment. One is a yellow-sided named Picasso. One is a cinnamon named Queenie. She's the meanest one. We have a rescue named Willa, who is a black-capped conure. And then we have a turquoise green cheek conure named Bluey. His name was something else, but we kept calling him Little Bluey. And now he's Little Bluey. And now he says Little Bluey and he calls himself Little Bluey. So that's his name. It's not anything to do with the cartoon. And I have fly traps. I have Venus fly traps. I got one right here. Here you go, Venus flytraps. They are not very big. That's about as big as they get. They spread out, but they're not very big. I always thought fly traps were gonna, like feed me Seymour. But they're not. They're pretty small. They just spread out. So I've got 4 Venus flytraps, and I'm growing some from seeds, which I'm really stoked that actually worked. It's taken months. I have lots of cactuses. I collect cactuses. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen a plethora of the cactuses that I have. And that's all I can think of at the moment. Oh, I have a bachelor's degree in creative writing with a minor in speech, shocker. And I have a master's degree in creative nonfiction, which is like storytelling, memoir writing, think David Sedaris. And I just finished my master's last year. It took me 6 years to get through because, COVID, layoffs, lockdown. I was laid off twice in the amount of time that it took me to get my master's degree. So I have a brother. My biological father died when I was a year old, but I have a stepdad. And I view them both as my dad. He actually knew my biological father, so it's very interesting to hear stories from both my mom and from my stepdad and from family members. And it sounds like I am a lot like my dad, which I consider a good thing. And I wanted to be an illustrator for the majority of my life. There was a while where my whole personality was doing comic strips, and that's where I was headed before I found comedy. So I like to draw, I like to paint, but yeah. That's really all I can think of. This was kind of off the cuff. So if you have questions, I would love to address questions. Like if I didn't cover something in content creation that you would want me to cover that you're interested in hearing about, I would love to make more content based on, advice and tips that I have for content creators and things that I found personally that work for me and things that haven't worked for me and work for other people or don't work for other people. But for now, that was kind of my first foray into the who are you, what are you about, what are your tips and advice content. If you don't like it, please don't tell me. If you did like it, please tell me. And if you have questions or comments or thoughts or ideas for other types of content you would like to see, let me know and I'm happy to make it. But I was genuinely surprised that anybody would care to hear more about who I am as a person. The voice behind the podcast. Bye.